toxic masculinity.
Yeah. Education Secretary, it's
Yeah.
too soon to say if schools can reopen by fall.
Yeah, this is a little bit disappointing, actually. So, oh, that's a little funny. I'm kind of blocking this. Let me adjust. I gotta slide over here a little bit. There we go. All right. Education Secretary says it's too soon to say if schools can open by fall. I mean, okay, just before I read this, I just want to say this is because of the teachers' unions. This has nothing to do with safety. This has nothing to do with doing the right thing. This has nothing to do with anything about science or sensibility. This has everything to do with the teachers' unions demanding that the schools stay closed and they continue to do this Zoom classes nonsense. So the education secretary is waffling about whether or not schools will open because he doesn't want to get on
Doesn't
the
wanna
bad
work?
side. Huh?
Doesn't want to work?
Well, he has to work no matter what, but he doesn't want to get on the bad side of teachers' unions who don't want to work. Let's see here. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona said it's premature to determine if schools can resume in-person instruction this fall, despite a growing body of evidence that shows that students can safely return to the classroom. In a Wednesday interview with MSNBC's Chris Hayes, Cardona said the rate of COVID-19 transmission in the community would play a role in determining whether K-12 students would receive face-to-face instruction. Hayes pressed Cardona for the Education Department's stance on whether remote learning should continue at the start of 2021-2022 school year. It's premature to tell, Cardona said. One thing I know, as a former commissioner of education, COVID-19 numbers will dictate how we move to reopen schools. I mean, what he's saying sounds reasonable, but isn't reasonable because kids don't really transmit COVID-19 very well. And all over the world, they've reopened schools and it's been fine. It's just, he's just pandering to the teachers' unions and he's basically lying about why he's doing what he's doing. So it's not just about what's happening in the schools, it's about what's happening in the community. Cardona's, well, of course it's not about what's happening in the schools because the schools are closed. Like, it couldn't be about what's happening in the schools. Cardona's comments came just hours. I guess maybe he's saying it's not just about keeping the schools safe with certain measures or something. I don't know, whatever. Cardona's comments came just hours after the Education Department's National Safe School Reopening Summit, during which educators from across the United States discussed safe reopening strategies. New Jersey Governor Phil Murray announced the same day that families would not have an option to continue remote learning next fall unless the world goes sideways. CDC Director Rochelle Walensky in February said the schools can safely reopen before teachers have access to the coronavirus vaccine. A January study from the nation's top infectious disease experts found that coronavirus outbreaks in classrooms have been rarely reported, and the American Academy of Pediatrics study found that coronavirus transmission is extremely rare in the classroom setting. Biden administration originally pledged to reopen schools by the end of April. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has since walked back that claim and now says the administration wants some students learning in person at least one day a week. Yeah, he's like, we're going to get half the schools open. And then Psaki's like, what we mean by open is we mean open by one day a week. That's what we mean by open. Oh, that was just such BS. While students have returned to the classroom faster than white students have returned to the classroom faster than minority students, despite evidence that remote learning has widened racial disparities in education and disproportionately harmed Black and Hispanic students. This is why we need school vouchers and privatization. Because in such cases, I'm not sure that they could mandate that schools stay closed, because private schools could have could decide for themselves to reopen. I mean, I guess they could still close them in the same way that they're like gyms have to be closed. But I think that you wouldn't have all this pressure from the teachers' unions, because each individual, the government would have I think a little bit less. They would be pressured less in that instance if the schools weren't all controlled by the teachers' unions. Let's see here. 58% of Black students and 56% of Hispanic students continue to learn from home, compared with just 27% of white students, according to new Education Department study. Cardona said the findings, called those findings encouraging, but said the department still has a lot of ground to go to close the critical gaps in learning access for students of color. How is that encouraging? I don't understand how that's encouraging. It's like so weird. Like, these Democrats are so annoying. None of their policies make any sense. They're irrational. It's just that they're beholden to the teachers' unions. They don't actually They are not actually acting in the best interest of the American public. Because the teachers' unions, do you know about the teachers' unions? Teachers' unions basically have so much voting power. They're such a large constituency of the Democrats that they can basically just demand things of Democrat politicians, and Democrat politicians just have to say, okay. So they just make whatever demands they want. It's absolutely terrible. It's extortion. You're looking at the brightness of your face? It's very exciting. It's basically extortion for votes. And we need to stop that kind of stuff in America. Let's move on to the next story.
Okay. Washington. I have a problem with this V and W. Washington Post falsely reports there is no migrant surge.
Yeah, so the Washington Post, apparently they had to change a story. Why am I covering everything up here? I'll do that. Let's see here. They had to correct the headline of a story and some of the words in the story. Toxic Masculinity. Weekdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.